Yeah. Environment is trees plus dirt.
Security is population plus peace.
Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's up?
This is Oh God.
Is the therapy already hitting you?
I'd say. First of all, if you're listening on the Patreon, it is challenge month.
Of course.
My challenge is to go to therapy. I think I've
Why are you here? Because it's challenge month.
Yeah, obviously. A thing that I've both had to use my own benefits for, spend my own money on, and have to use my own promo code. The indignity.
I did like that you sent that screenshot to me.
The indignity of having to use my own promo code for this challenge
feels despicable.
The fuck.
I do like that you're like, I can't this my own money. I was like, you probably have benefits that cover that.
I know, but they only cover 80%.
Oh,
so I am actually spending my own money.
Like $20.
How much do you think therapy costs?
Like $100 and something bucks
each time. You're making me do 3. I had to pay for a month.
Okay, you could take it out of the fucking bank account then.
I think it's so fucked of you to
We've
do
got
this.
enough.
I mean, fair. But still, at any rate, that's happening. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
No, because you haven't started yet.
No, I start tomorrow.
Fuck yeah.
And if you notice a difference in my voice next week,
yeah, he's going to get fucking more vulnerable on this podcast.
Who's vulnerable?
You know what's funny? I was my girlfriend and I were talking the other day because she was saying that her and her like girlfriends were talking about like their husbands and stuff, and they were like, do they like have like genuine like conversations with their like friends and stuff? And I was like, well, we talk honestly on the podcast.
Sure.
I was like, besides my divorce, I don't think I've ever been like that earnest and genuine with Reed.
No, but I think we know what we mean.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I could say a thing as a joke, but I think you would get the meaning.
Yes.
I think we very rarely have needed to be earnest.
And when we've tried, we don't do that. We make a sketch instead.
It's awful.
I've got the outtakes, and it's not good. No, instead we don't do what we're asked and do what we want.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard this before too, though, that like, well, I mean, I've heard it's the other way where it's like, oh yeah, I was just hanging out with the guys, and be like, oh, did you hear like,
oh yeah,
so and so's girlfriend told me they were moving. It's like, no, I didn't know that.
I mean, that happens with my girlfriend all the time. Also, because she asks the most amount of questions of any person I've ever met.
She does like to have all the information,
and so she'll very much be like. Like I'll literally come home and be like, "Oh yeah, Reed's doing this thing with Maggie or something," and she's like, "Oh, and what are they doing?" And I was like, "I don't really know." And she's like, "Well, why are they doing that?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." She's just like, "What do you know?" And I was like, "I don't know. The information that I told you. I heard a thing and then did it.
Yeah,
didn't require more follow up.
Yeah, this is communication.
Yeah. I'm doing the work."
Wow, lucky lady. Yeah, I'm the one whose challenges therapy.
Hey, you're the one whose partner asked to join.
Listen.
Fuck you. Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you. That was very funny the other day because I did not want to have that conversation with
I'm being attacked on all sides, I'll have you know.
You did this to yourself. One, I never wanted you to really choose that. I thought it was ridiculous that I even put it in there, but you chose it.
Yeah, then, so fuck you. A fine reason to go to therapy. I believe is what I said.
Then you were like, why would you ask me? And I was like, I don't want to answer that question. And then you said, what would I talk about? And I said,
yeah, but that was a genuine question. I was like, if you're not going to therapy because it's like, I have anxiety and I want to work, if you don't have like a goal, because my thing is I'm just going because it's challenge month. I was like, I was asking a genuine question, like, what do you even say?
But I said that, and then you kept pushing, but like, what would I talk about? And
yes.
I was like, and then I said, I don't want to answer that. And you said, no, tell me. And then your wife came in and you'd be like, did you hear this? What would I even do? And
I know,
then both of us were like,
but then anything that the two of you said is just about me being right.
Can you just have that full conversation? Just tell everything that we just talked about to the therapist.
He's going to be like, your friends and family sound like they don't get you.
And you fucking rule, dude.
You're dope.
Can I join the podcast?
I was actually planning a trip. Do you want to come on a road trip with me?
Hold on. Let me write this note for you first that says you don't need therapy and I should be on the podcast.
Yeah, I did say that I should get bonus points for Challenge Month if I could get a note from the therapist that says I don't need it.
And what I said was, if you could get that, I'll never bring it up again, and you won the contest.
Yes, yeah.
That is a get out of jail free therapy free card.
We'll see.
I told this to my girlfriend and she was like, that's not how therapy works. I was like, oh, I know.
Sorry. So whose side is she on? Because a week ago,
yeah,
you pitched this therapy idea to me and you said that she said, what would he even go for? An answer I respect.
Also, this is
by the way, listen on the Patreon. We shouldn't be giving this all away for free.
Yeah, you want to hear more about this bitching? This is where you can get it. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
Richard is doing crimes this month. Anyway,
speaking of trauma, 9/11.
Listen, should I have resisted the temptation?
Look, I'm going to say I almost forgot this is what we were doing.
This episode,
but then I remembered that I could never forget.
Yeah, never forget.
Yeah,
but I almost did.
Yeah,
but then I never did.
Did you see that tweet the other day that somebody wrote? They were like, "I think it's been enough time that we can get some kick-ass savings."
I've seen that. Yeah, Jesus. This episode comes out on September 11th.
These sales are building crashers.
Oh, I was going to say 2 for 1, but...
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, that's good too, fuck.
Jesus. This is going to be a deeply inappropriate episode, but it's also been...
The second deal starts in an hour.
Jesus Christ. No, I stopped myself.
The horrible savings I wouldn't be getting if I didn't come in today.
This is bad, man. This episode has come out on September 11th. 9/11, I would say, comes up a shocking amount in my life.
So much so that you weren't allowed on a podcast about it.
They denied me. And then when I was introduced years later as a guest on the podcast...
Oh, I made sure that they didn't forget.
No, they introduced me as a 9/11 meme enthusiast.
I mean, at least you're not a truther.
Well,
oh no.
Yeah, but I it's weird truths.
9/11 was an inside pod.
Well, I actually think that the World Trade Center never existed.
Oh, should I say the thing that I said the other day? Do you?
I don't remember,
and
but
you
probably not. But go for it anyway.
You said make sure to save that for the podcast.
Oh no! What is it in that text chain?
No. I said it to you in person. And you were like, "Holy shit, that's good."
Okay, go for it.
Superman is the man of steel beams.
The man of steel beams. Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. So I thought we should talk about 9/11 in DC comics, because I'll tell you, I made the mistake of Googling 9/11 DC.
Oh, did anything come up?
Well, the Pentagon mostly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that went down more than anything. But.
Jesus, that's fucked, man.
It was really more of a fuck. I don't know what shapes well.
We are 10 minutes in.
What's an octagon with one less like
an octagon? It's called the Pentagon.
Fuck.
You fucking idiot.
Is it an octagon?
The Pentagon. You know the thing with 8 sides? You fucking moron.
What's a pentagon with one less side?
A square or a rectangle.
Yeah, it became the rectangle that day.
Jesus. An octagon with one less side. You fucking idiot.
The Pentagon was octagon.
Oh no. This was a mistake.
What did you think I was going to do?
I thought you would handle this with the respect it deserved.
Like the other time.
Yeah, like every other time we've talked about 9/11.
We could talk about the other thing we always talk about.
Okay, listen. No, hang on. I'm going to actually do this here. Where were you on 9/11?
Hold on. Let's turn.
I don't. That wasn't an accusation. I'm just curious.
Hold on. I think we can turn this plate around.
I mean, it is a problem that a cliche I use frequently is land this plane.
We could have figured out how to land this plane. Not in this day.
I love that your therapist is going to listen to the podcast and this episode's going to come out.
I mean, it's a good chance that this is the one.
It's really bad.
Where was I? I was in high school. It would have been grade 9, right?
Yep.
I remember like walking. I remember being in class and everybody talking a lot about something happening, and then I remember going into the hallway, hearing that school was canceled, and I was like, nice. Then I remember getting home and being like, oh shit, we're all gonna die. And then I feel like, I don't know, somewhere in like near Toronto, there was a man who was suddenly becoming radicalized.
Wait.
You.
What, me?
Remember you said you were like, you became a little radicalized right when 9/11 happened?
Okay, well, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So 9/11.
Yeah.
Definitely grade 9.
Yeah.
Here's my fucked up 9/11 story. They said it over the PA system. They were like,
which is a weird thing to do at the airport.
It's like the first week of school. It's been like maybe 3 days. I'm in math class, and they come over the PA, and they're just like, America's been attacked. And I laughed because at the time, I was like, who would do that?
I mean, that does sound like a thing you'd be like, that's dumb.
And I was like, high school's weird. I don't get these jokes.
It's grade 9.
I don't know why that's where my brain
went.
It
also is like, high school just started.
It just started, and I was like, is this like a weird first week thing where they tell like a silly prank on the... I just didn't believe it. And then they brought us all into like the third gym. You know, like we had like a big gym that you would divide, and then we did like the smaller gym or whatever.
Yeah.
They brought us into like the third gym. And like, squeaky, squeak, like wheeled a
That's
TV
because the first 2
out.
gyms were already taken down.
Jesus Christ. The fuck? They wheeled a TV in and made us watch the news.
Oh, I just went home.
Well, I think that was like, if you want to know what's going on, you know, like,
sure, yeah. I just went home, but
I don't know if I went home early that day or not, but I remember being at school, sitting in a gym, watching the news, and I was like, fuck, it's real. And it did feel very crazy. You know, I think we take for granted when we say like pre 9/11, post 9/11 world, but it really was different, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that the day before was glistening with pre 9/11.
Jesus. This was such a mistake of an episode. I'm trying to get to
no,
context.
You're radicalizing, I know.
The context of saying that I radicalized, which is that in my very, at times, binary way,
yes,
right and wrong. I'm now, obviously, I understand nuance, but in high school,
did you jump to conclusion?
Imagine a version of me even more confident that he was right, but not smart enough to know he was wrong.
Oh no.
And that version of me, I was against
war.
I was against the war in Afghanistan. I was pro the war in Iraq.
I mean, of course,
in 2003. But now in my head, I was like, Hussein's a bad guy. Someone's got to take him down. And like, it wasn't even like that I thought he had the weapon. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
It was like someone had to pay.
I just, well, no, I didn't even tie it to 9/11. I was just like, no, this just seems like a right thing to do. Like, the dumbest position to have. Where it's like, I don't even have a horse in the race, but I'm just like, I don't know, do it. Destabilize the country.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are saying he's a pretty bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt weirdly about it because my cousin is in the military, and so he deployed to Afghanistan a bunch. There was
it was weird that he was fighting those Americans.
I could see through the coalition of the willing kind of propaganda thing. I could see through the Patriot Act kind of thing, but there was this part of me that like, without putting too fine a point, like someone has to pay. Like,
yeah.
There is some element of that was true for me back then.
I mean, you could see how like
extremely cringy to look back and be like, oh, this fucking stupid ass kid. But like, you totally get
how like teens get put in the army when like stuff happens.
I understand the pipeline to the alt-right kind of thing. I think it's only because of other people I was around and being in the arts and like other things that like be like, you should take in other perspectives, and you go like, you're right. Maybe that was a little much,
Thank God you got into the arts.
I mean,
not just the Marshall.
Yeah, no, I would.
I mean, because who you were
picturing me like this is like Galadriel tempted by the ring. Be like, imagine if I hadn't been.
Yeah, I mean, truly, it would have been so bad.
I'd be some sort of alt-right influencer.
It's like, if you did,
I remember saying stupid things in high school.
We all fucking said.
Well, I mean, all of us did. I understand that, but I remember saying stupid things with a totally straight face that are totally right-wing talking points now. Where I'd be like, they should call it equalism. Feminism implies that they're better than us.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you go like, that's not
the point here.
You might as well say all lives matter. Yeah, it's like, don't, so that time, 9/11, like, if I actually think of where I was, it's like, that could have gone much worse for me.
I mean, yeah, that was the fork in the multiverse, like.
Oh yeah, there's a darkest timeline.
Yeah, that was you where like something happened and you lost your parents at a young age, so you had no like creative influence on you.
Yeah. Or it wasn't in band or something.
Sure, yeah. Like it was like one small change could have like redirected you in so many ways.
Yeah, it was.
Look, I mean, that was also the time we didn't know.
No, and again, part of it is like you say a thing, you make a mistake, you learn from it, you grow. Yeah. That's a fine trajectory. It's fine, but I do like. I kind of just go like think about stuff that I know I said, and you go like, ugh, God.
But also, yeah, it's like the
at least I don't think it now, but still.
Also, we had no idea the level of like the like government and like intrusion and like responsibility for all of these things. Like we get so much more context now.
It was weird though because I wasn't like fully alt-right or something.
No,
but I think that this is an insane thing to say. I've always had a sort of authoritarian.
Yeah, that's just because you think you're right.
But I'm a very like lefty person. I just think people can't be trusted to make the lefty choices, so I should
just
take the choice from them and make the better world.
So funny. You
know what I mean?
It's like I'm a dictator for good. I mean, it's really funny that
if you could guarantee it, that's my preferred political system. I mean, but you can't guarantee that because power corrupts. But like if there was some sort of perfect world where you had some benevolent, immortal philosopher king, I'd be like, yes.
Look, it is very funny because
it's impossible, but I would totally vote for that thing.
I'm being a very you behind the scenes in some ways in our community.
Sure.
And I had somebody be like, how are you involved with this today? And I was like, well, just like, influencing.
Just in the way that a puppet master works his
And I could see
creations.
them looking at me like, oh, this might not be good. And I was like, no, but I'm doing it for good.
You don't understand. I'm a shadowy, manipulative figure for good.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, I might have basically just said that. Yeah. And I was like, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. So at any rate, the 9/11 episode, we're going to dig into some deep, dark truths. Some deep, dark truthers.
Yeah. Oh, what was that the conspiracy documentary called? Oh, Loose Change. That's what it is.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you don't know Loose Change?
No, I don't.
Or Spare Change? One of the two. Anyways, let's go to Facebook.
Go to the face of the book. Go to the Facebook.
You did this. Just remember that.
Yeah.
Whoa, speaking of controversial locations politically, Kyle Soviet.
Yes, yeah, the Soviet Union, which definitely existed in 2001.
Yeah, these fucking Gen Zs don't know. 9/11 was a huge part of the title Ex Machina, written by Brian K. Vaughan, and art by Tony Harris. What are your thoughts and opinions on that story as a whole and how it dealt with 9/11?
Ex Machina was like a Wildstorm book, I think.
Sure.
It's technically under the DC umbrella. I'll be honest, I haven't read all of it. The thing though in that one is that the main guy partially stops 9/11. I think he stops the second plane.
Okay.
But he's like got like technopathy powers, like he can control technology. I think that's how he stops the second plane. Like that's his power. And then he becomes like mayor of New York and stuff like that. And the whole series is about this like it is this sort of, because it's like about technology and control and things like that. It does have this sort of kind of creepy Black Mirror kind of vibe to it. Other than 9/11 being the inciting incident, I don't really remember how much, like, the thing that I'm fuzzy on is how much the vibe of 9/11 played into it. I mean, obviously, big time.
Yeah.
Again, the pre 9/11, post 9/11 thing is like, I think the thing that we take for granted is the stories that happened post 9/11 had such a darker slant when it came to government things and stuff like that. And that's not to say that we implicitly trusted the government beforehand, because we didn't, you know.
Sure.
We had been eroding that trust for decades already. But there was this sort of like immediate, sharp, almost like cartoonish turn to propaganda.
Yeah.
And maybe it was because it was also the beginning of social media and the internet. Like maybe it wasn't different from the 80s, but it was so much more pervasive between cable news and the 24-hour news cycle and the internet, and like, you know, we're only a couple of years away from Facebook and like all these kind of things. Like I don't know. I'm sure someone's written a paper about it, but I think the idea of like the cartoonishness of propaganda and then the inherent distrust of authority, and there were all these thoughts like I certainly at the time was firmly in the it's an inside job camp.
Yeah.
Like in a way that I don't know. It still could have been. The reason I don't think it is because I don't think the government's competent enough to keep that secret.
Always my thing is that to pull anything off or do anything, keep anything secret.
My position on conspiracy theories is they're absolutely within the realm of feasibility and reality in terms of someone
could do it.
Someone being malicious enough to do a cover-up, but absolutely impossible that they succeed. You know what I mean? Like I think like
as people who work with government often.
Yeah. There's no way.
No way.
There's no way. But yeah, I mean, Ex Machina definitely, like the inciting incident is 9/11, and it is obviously a book in response to that. But to be honest, it's been a while since I read it, and I didn't finish it.
Did you say it was Wildstorm?
Yeah.
I put it up. I'm surprised it didn't come from Boom.
That's Jesus, Richard.
Ready or not, here comes the...
This was such a mistake. Wait, were you referencing the Kevin James movie?
No, I was doing the song from POD.
Here Comes the Boom.
Yeah,
I was Kevin James UFC movie.
No, I was thinking of something more broad and nobody knows it. The POD song.
Sure.
Well, it's not my carrots.
Yeah, it's John's peas. Yeah,
and I will do anything to get them.
Oh my God.
Including.
No.
Where it sounds like John's peas need some freedom.
No, good Lord. Mission accomplished.
Were there any comic book runs that were outright stopped due to the events of 9/11?
So I tried to look this up.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were like hiccups in like production or delivery or distribution. But from what I could tell, no DC comic just got outright canceled because of 9/11. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
No one was like, maybe we shouldn't do like Terror Man #3. Like there was nothing like that. The DC and Marvel offices were both in New York at the time. DC's offices are now in LA, but at the time they were in New York. I'm positive it must have disrupted just the business for a little bit, but artistically I didn't see anything where something got canceled or a book got like removed or whatever. If anything, if they had to resolicit or something like that, it would have been just because of like the issues of shipping, because they grounded all the planes. Like, that was a wild.
There's a whole play about it.
A wild time, So no, from what I could tell, nothing like that.
So there is from Marvel.
Marvel was different, and we've got a couple of questions that'll touch on it. But I think the Marvel one is different because they use New York City.
Well, yeah.
DC basically doesn't. I shouldn't say doesn't, but it's only like in this issue we have to go to the UN, and you go like, well, that's obviously New York City. But like day to day, Batman's not in New York. Day to day, Superman's not in New York. No. Day to day, the Flash isn't in New York.
DC almost pulled Adventures of Superman 596 because it was released on the day after 9/11 and featured Metropolis getting destroyed.
Sure,
but they actually didn't pull it.
No,
they were concerned about it, but they didn't. But Marvel had the Brotherhood from 2001, which is like a mutant terrorist.
Yeah,
and they did stop that one.
Yeah. Oh no, there was definitely some things like,
but it's definitely the New York.
But you
thing.
think
like
of
Spider-Man, yeah.
But you think of Marvel, Spider-Man, Daredevil, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers are all in New York.
Yeah,
like it's.
Yeah, I highly recommend people checking out the actual 9/11 issue of Spider-Man because it's an interesting one. But yeah, otherwise DC didn't really do that.
No.
All right, let's leave Facebook and head on over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram, take some questions and answer them.
First question comes from E. Rut, who asks, are there any characters who are direct responses to 9/11? Like their origin revolves around it, either in universe or the creator's inspiration or something?
I mean, yeah. The most obvious one to me is probably Simon Baz. He's a new Green Lantern during the New 52. And I can't remember if he's directly implicated in 9/11, but the whole point of Simon was that he's he's Muslim, he's Middle Eastern, he faced racism, like the wave of anti-Muslim, anti-Middle Eastern racism, you know what I mean, in the wake of 9/11 was like wild, and Simon's whole story is about that. I also think another Green Lantern, Jo Mullein, she joins the military because of 9/11, I think, like in her backstory. Those are two right off the bat, two Green Lanterns. I mean, say what you like, kind of militaristic, but
also like cops in post 9/11, yeah.
But both of them have direct ties to 9/11. The what's implied by this question, which is a thing that does not exist, is someone's origin 9/11.
Yeah,
a 9/11 was done to me, and so now I will. Not that you get powers from it, but like, it's not like
I got the power of freedom.
It's not like 9/11 happened, and then someone was like, "And so I'm gonna go over there."
I jumped out of the building and found out I could fly.
Jesus Christ. I mean, the other thing with DC is I mean, Marvel, I assume, has this too. Again, Marvel like directly addressed 9/11 in a way that DC mostly did not.
Yeah.
But Marvel must also have this, but DC has this like sliding time scale, right? And basically at a certain point, it was no longer relevant. Like essentially the superheroes weren't there for it. You know what I mean? Like if you think of the New 52, which took place in 2011, the idea there was that superheroes had been around for 5 years.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was some that had been like longer or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about like the Justice League, essentially there was no Justice League on 9/11 by the time you get to the New 52.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And if you like assume that Bruce and Clark are the ages they're meant to be, they would be at most really around our age on 9/11. Like they would be 13 or something. They wouldn't stop 9/11 then.
Oh, yeah.
If they're in their mid to late 30s or something like that. Even if they were in their 40s, they'd be young, barely started out. Bruce would probably still not be back from his training or whatever.
Yeah.
So DC sort of got away with it. Well, that's the alibi anyway. Yeah.
And he went to like, I don't know, like a Middle Eastern-y type of area and trained with some soldiers.
Let's flip this though and say, in a post 9/11 world, that is 100% where you get the Nolan Batman.
Oh yeah,
and I don't mean it in the racist kind of way of like he trained somewhere in the East.
Yes.
No, but I mean like the movie being racist. But what I mean is, we're like, Batman Begins is a slight exception because it does still have some like character. But like The Dark Knight is just like, here's a bunch of just like rectangular glass buildings.
Yeah.
That's Gotham. And you go like, Gotham doesn't even look dirty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it seems like a normal city. And it's like, it's so fucking corrupt. You go like, is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Gotham is, and that's such a 9/11-y feeling. Post 9/11-y feeling kind of movie.
Sure.
He's so militaristic and tactical, and it's very like clean.
They even talk about like the stuff he's using as military,
and it's like sterile and things like that. And that was such an aesthetic of like post 9/11.
Isn't Kate Kane very like?
She was in the military.
She gets around that time period.
Well, she gets kicked out. So,
because there's that whole don't ask, don't tell thing.
Kate Kane, Batwoman, I think first appears in like 2006.
Yeah. Pretty
absolutely
fresh.
In Don't Ask, Don't Tell. That's part of her original like origin and all that kind of stuff. So they definitely play off that, and because of that era too. When you show someone that's in the military, they're in the desert somewhere. It's Iraq, I guess, or Afghanistan. It's one of the two, right? So there's definitely that. I mean, even think of, this is not DC, but like look at what they did to Iron Man.
Oh, I mean, of course.
Like I just mean the movie. Even I don't know if they had changed it in the comics before the movie, or if the movie then reflected back. But like that's just fully Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
Like terrorists hiding in caves, capture like Tony Stark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's fully Afghanistan.
Totally. All right. Next question comes from ABC.
Brooks.
It's easy as 1, 2, 3.
Brooks.
Easy as do, re, mi.
Brooks.
ABC.
Brooks.
1, 2, 3.
Brooks.
Baby, you and me. Brooks.
Brooks. Brooks. Brooks. Brooks. Brooks. Brooks. Brooks. Yeah.
Brooks.
Do you know what I really think about from the 9/11 like Bush era?
What's that?
So he had that coalition of the willing or whatever, like that kind of thing, and he used the phrase "you're either with us or you're against us." And then I remember Revenge of the Sith came out, and that line is basically verbatim in that movie.
It is,
and like I like what George is playing with there, but he's like, a poet, George is not. Like, then you are my enemy. But I remember watching that movie and being like, oh, this is we're just fully referencing
that's crazy.
This,
I didn't even realize that. Yeah. All right. ABC Brooks asks, the 9/11 graphic novel that DC published, is it worth a read?
Yeah. So there were two kind of graphic novel anthologies called 9/11 that came out at this time. One of them came out in 2001, I believe, and was a bunch of artists and writers and that doing like little shorts. Some of them were like just an image. Some of them were like short stories, but most of them were like short. But just essentially, like, they even described it as like, we just needed to get some of this stuff out. The first one was published, I think, by Dark Horse. But a big collaboration, lots of different things.
Sure.
There. DC published the second one. Most of the stories in there do not feature DC characters.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They're just like, it's like a kid who like,
yeah,
you know, gets saved from the rubble, or like they're like, people were like, truly the artists working on this were like working through it. You know, like I would say it's relatively powerful that way.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of DC stories in there. There's one that is it's been a while since I've read it, but it's an interesting idea that I remember, which is it's a Superman story and Superman's narrating.
Of course, Superman.
And then you zoom out and it's a kid reading a Superman story while the plane is hitting the tower.
Oh, wow.
But then the Superman narration carries on in real life, and Superman basically says something to the effect of like, the thing that makes him saddest is that he can't be real, or like some shit like that. Like, it's like this kind of meta thing about, you know, about Superman, which is like very sad. There's a story in there where fucking Static, like Virgil Hawkins, basically has to talk people down from like the propaganda of like, who someone has to pay. You know, like he's like, people are like, we should go and bomb the shit out of their fucking countries, and he has to be like, I'm fucking angry, but that like being evil to redress evil doesn't, like, that math doesn't work. And Static has to like talk his neighbors down from being like pro-war and stuff like that. That's an interesting one. But a lot of the stories, again, like I said, don't feature DC characters.
Or not even stories at all, yeah.
Some of them aren't even stories, but it's like there's a fire, you know, like firefighter or police officer or first responders or you know, Good Samaritans, or there's one about a guy helping another guy out of the building, out of the World Trade Center, and stuff like that. Like, it's, yeah, I mean, some of them are very good. Some of them are, you know, I think you do get the sense that people were working through it. Some of them are like barely ideas, but they're definitely images, you know, like they're snapshots of the moment. And you know, we were 12 or 13 when that happened.
14.
I was about to be 14. Yeah. I was 13. Because I'm young. And so, you know, even for us, I think we're, you know, in Canada and 13, we were sort of removed by a couple of levels. But I've heard it, you know, like, it sort of was like, it was like Pearl Harbor or something. Like,
yeah,
it's hard, I think, nowadays to communicate that it was unthinkable.
Yeah.
Like, that was why I laughed and thought it was a, you know, like, it's like, what do you mean
America
attack? You know, like, what does that even mean? That idea, like, it didn't exist for me as a kid at that time. And so, you know, they said it a lot at the time in that propaganda-y way of like, never forget, or like, where were you when it happened? But like, I've never forgotten. I've never forgotten where I was the moment that I.
Oh yeah, I have a very.
It's like, in a way that I would have scoffed at, but it's totally burned in my head. And I do think you get the sense of the impact of that moment when you read that anthology. I don't know that every piece of it holds up, but you do really get the vibe of like how intensely burned into the subconscious these images or these ideas or that trauma was.
I remember going home and literally being, because I was the only one home, and I was like, where, especially where I was living, I was like, I'm right next to Detroit. I was like, how much more is gonna come? And I was like,
I mean, that was a question. They locked down Toronto. They thought they're like, you know.
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, I guess there is a trade center in Detroit.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like,
is it trade centers?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, they just don't like those buildings.
Yeah. No, it's
we just hate trade.
Actually, I'm pro-trade. I'm just anti-centers of trade.
just world centers.
Yeah. Pretty specific.
Yeah. Anyways, next question from Copy801, who asks, if the DC heroes were in the real world, who is the most unlikely choice that would have been able to successfully stop the attack?
Jesus.
Can you imagine the zoo crew having to deal with that?
Fucking Pig Iron has to Mark Wahlberg it and save the day.
Not in these parts.
Oh no, the zoo crew. Oh no.
There's your awa now.
Jesus. Good Lord. What the fuck? This was such a mistake.
You did this.
I didn't make you say it, but
you knew that I had no choice. By making it, you made me say
the problem with this question is that it's
what?
It's making you think of goofy things. You know, like, who's the most unlikely character to stop 9/11?
Jimmy Olsen.
I mean, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, you blinded me with the flash.
I think my issue with it is that I feel like because it's a real thing, it undercuts it's tasteless to have someone accidentally stop it. Like, a thing you didn't do in old war books is have like Sergeant Rock didn't slip on a banana peel and shoot Hitler. You know, like, if we won the war in a comic book, it was by, the Flash ran, or you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
They did something. You can't have Gnort be like, I thought we were going to Aruba, and turn the plane around. You can't do something goofy with it because it's sort of
I fucking love that.
Sort of shitty, you know what I mean? So that's a tough question to answer.
I fucking love that. Well, I answered it, you fucking coward.
The least likely hero to stop it?
The terrorists themselves.
I mean, maybe just logistically, Aquaman, because
sure, Sky.
Although New 52 Aquaman he saved a plane crash. Actually, he used a whirlpool thing to launch himself into the sky. So even Aquaman maybe.
Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah. I just stopped myself again.
What?
I'm just thinking at the end of Batman Begins, where he's like, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. And he just gets out of the plane.
What happened to the plane?
I really hate that. This was such a mistake.
Next question from Dem Jankies, who asks,
why was I excited for a 9/11 episode?
You thought it'd be fun. Too fucking bad.
Jesus.
Did DC ever talk about 9/11 in the comics? Marvel obviously kind of had to, given the main location of the stories, but DC has the advantage of having fictional home bases, but New York still exists. Have they directly said the attacks happen in the main universe, or do they just not touch it?
So, first of all, in general, 9/11 exists in the DC universe.
Okay.
It happened, yes.
The heroes just decided,
because of the sliding time scale, they now are sort of in the era where it's like, we didn't really have a Justice League. Like, you sort of just like, don't look over there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Marvel had like basically like immediately like it was like 9/11 happened in Marvel. In
That's
DC,
when the superheroes were carrying
they
you.
sort of it just eventually, as you're writing a comic, you would just reference a thing and you would just know that it had happened. But DC didn't put out like the they didn't go like,
literally did, but yeah.
I mean, they did in the sort of like fundraiser artistic way. They didn't do it like, oh, it's Batman like 750. That's where 9/11 happens.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
they didn't, you know what I mean? They didn't do that. But they did ultimately reference it. So 9/11 happened, but they didn't like work it in the way like TV shows at the time had to work it in or totally ignore it. Friends. Like stuff like that. You're right. I think that not actually having anything specifically set in New York sort of gave them an out.
Yeah.
That way. You really can't with Marvel.
Yeah.
New York is sort of like another character.
And that character got hurt.
What I will say though is in the past DC has referenced the other World Trade Center attack. Referenced or like
the original, or like the
so remember it was in like the early 90s
or
or the
90s?
late 80s or something.
Yeah.
Where there was it was like a car bomb went off in the parking garage or something.
Yeah.
There. There's it must have been 80s or 90s. There's a Firestorm comic or a Superman comic featuring Firestorm where Killer Frost is basically trying to do that.
Oh wow.
And Superman and Firestorm stop her.
Jesus.
Like there's shit like that. It might be that one. Superman holds the tower up. A bomb goes off and it like affects the structure, and Superman holds the World Trade Center up.
Wow.
This is obviously pre 9/11.
Yes. Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up though is that like they've referenced other or like taken inspiration from things the way like Law and Order would be like, what's in the news? Let's do our version of it.
Sure.
Would do stuff like that, but it wasn't like 9/11 happened and then they did 9/11 in the comics. They did like that's not a thing in DC really. They did that graphic novel with all these sort of images and stories and that, but that was like a fundraiser. I can't remember what the causes like. There was the 9/11 relief fund and some other one for the first responders or something like that. It raised money though. It was like an artistic thing. It wasn't just like in continuity, like get the next issue of Action Comics. You won't believe what like it was. It wasn't like that.
Like Superman for the Taliban.
But in Marvel, it's like Amazing Spider-Man 300 something.
Yeah.
It has 9/11 in it. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's like a canon book where 9/11 happens.
Yeah. All right.
Uh-oh. I don't like that.
Well, it's time to leave Instagram and head on over to the Doc Scholar.
Ah, fuck.
I am so Doc.
No, hang on. I've got a perfect one for this episode.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess it's not really about 9/11, but it does make me think of the Bush era. I'm not ready to score docs. I'm not ready to doc scored. Still docs as hell.
Oh,
the fucking Dixie Chicks.
Jesus.
They got fucking conservative canceled. Because they spoke out against...
Joker's gotta die, nah, 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 nah.
What is that?
Earl's gotta die?
What is that?
Famous Dixie Chick song.
I don't really like the Dixie Chicks. I just remember the song from when they came back from after Bush canceled them.
Oh, okay.
I don't really know them or their music.
Now they're just the Chicks.
And yeah, that's right. I did know that.
Dixie.
Yeah.
But I like mine more. I'm so Docs. I'm on Doc School.
Yeah, hero. Fucking Chad Kroger.
I need a Doc School to save me. Not gonna
Spider-Man.
It was right around then.
Spider-Man is one of the movies where they had to edit it.
Yeah.
Because they had the World Trade Center at the end.
Like did a thing on it,
and they had to edit it. A bunch of movies had shit like that, and then other movies like left stuff in, like Gangs of New York left the Trade Center in.
Yeah. First question from the Doc scored from It Shall Not Pass.
Oh, Constipated Gandalf.
That's right. Who asks, there's been comparisons to the Battle of Metropolis in Man of Steel beams to 9/11. Do you think the visual imagery was too heavy-handed?
I mean, I think it is one of the most fair criticisms of Man of Steel. That it's like, why invoke like the trauma, like everyone's worst fears of urban terrorism, like that here. This is partly why I had a complicated relationship with Man of Steel thank you, is that when I watched that movie, there was a part of me that was like, it's a movie that understands that if two people of impossible power punch each other, it's like a problem. You know what I mean? And there was a part of me that was like,
he was almost saying something.
Well, not even that, but it was just like other things felt like we didn't really understand how powerful Superman is. He punches and like nothing happens. In this movie, he punches and the shockwave shatters windows and all that stuff. And so there was a part of me that was like we're really seeing the power level or the possible devastation of like two Kryptonians fighting. And I was like, that's interesting and realistic. But then you watch, like over time, you go back and you watch the movie, and it's like
there's so little empathy or care for like the people,
because we don't do any version of they punch and the buildings shatter, and then Clark turns away from the fight.
Which is what he would do,
to save someone, and
that makes him vulnerable. But it's the right thing to do.
That's the piece that's missed. Like there's a whole. There's so many shots that are a problem in there, but there's one where like Zod kicks a fuel truck at him. And Superman just like flies over it and lets it keep going in the background and explode. It's like, that's not what Superman does.
No.
So, you go back and you watch like that, his ship crash, and it's like just cutting through buildings, and buildings are falling, like multiple buildings falling over, like skyscrapers. It's like, for a movie that I defended for a very long time, and I do think there are some parts of that movie that are like absolutely great.
Yeah.
But
when his dad dies.
Yeah. They really, I mean, you can't, it's hokey, but I kind of like it. But at any rate.
You know what I can never forget?
The sound of the horses screaming.
Thank you.
But that battle really gets it wrong. I mean, even if Superman were acting like Superman and saving the day, that's still traumatic imagery to be throwing out there. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot. I get it from the sense of the premise of that movie was like, what if we did a Superman movie that felt more like a First Contact movie?
Yeah.
And that's one of the more interesting elements of Man of Steel, I would say. But it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, God, anything, like whether you like him or not, if the question is, was Zack Snyder heavy-handed, the answer is yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the what you're referring to.
He's not exactly like a master of subtlety. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it is a lot. I think it's undeniable that like it's maybe the most 9/11-y disaster movie.
For sure.
In a sense, Yeah.
It's
very specifically and targeted, channeling 9/11. Like all the scenes of like Perry and Lombard and stuff, like prying people out of the rubble and shit. It's like, first of all, you go like, shouldn't Superman be doing this too? Like, shouldn't he be doing it? And then people go and help, so he's inspiring them. You'd be like, no. What if he was just like making more damage?
Crazy.
So many missed opportunities.
I mean, I remember when that came out, that was the biggest criticism
yes,
of it.
100%.
Yeah. Next question. From Bisexual Lad, who asks, this is definitely insensitive.
Oh, good.
But, in this episode? But in a world where Coast City blew up with 7 million casualties, would a 9/11 3,000 casualties, even be a blip on the radar. Gotham probably has a 9/11 level event every single week, and they kind of just accept it.
I mean, I understand the premise, and the yeah, I get where the premise is, and I know it's not the same, but I would also argue that it's like the trauma of the moment wasn't, and I mean the trauma of the moment wasn't the death toll. That's a thing that we were tallying in the coming days and weeks, and then would get reported on, and then you make the memorial and you remember them and that kind of thing. But like the planes didn't hit the tower and then the Chiron said 3,000.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like the trauma of it was the attack. The visual, the World Trade Centers as this like, that American commercial and industrial supremacy, smoking, these passenger planes. Like it wasn't like fighter jets fired rockets. It was like civilians got, it was the horror of all of those pieces, the Pentagon getting attacked. Like it did feel like, I mean, it was an attack, not an accident, not a, you know what I mean? That was the trauma of it. The number, though horrible, is secondary to the imagery, the surprise, the nature. So I get your point, but I think it's also like, we talked about Cataclysm, like a bunch of bad shit happens in Gotham all the time. But the thing about Cataclysm is an earthquake hits and no one was ready for it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the shock. Or the Coast City thing, they think Cyborg Superman's a good guy, that he teams up with Mongol to destroy Coast City. And it's like Mongol, technically a Green Lantern adversary, but he's fought Superman a bunch. Mm-hmm. So really, in a sense, it's almost like two Superman villains destroyed Green Lantern City. You go like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I think the thing that we're playing with is not necessarily just the number. It's not just the casualty, the number of deaths. It's the trauma of it, I think it still makes impact. Like I think a 9/11 in the world still has impact, would still make the news and, shit like that, and would still have a thing, even though other bigger things also happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting point, and there's not really a good comparison because like,
but that's also like saying that like the United States has school shootings like every other fucking day, but do we not report on them?
But that is, like the Bisexual Lad's got a point, because when you use that, you go like, we report on it, but like
it's not as big of a deal.
But does it change and blah blah blah. But I my only counter argument there is that, they're still awful and traumatic. Like I still think it would. Yeah, I don't know. That's a wishy-washy answer. That's a tough question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Next question from JK, who asks, how do you think the changing of the political climate by 9/11 was addressed by the stories in DC?
Yeah, I mean, I think you start getting, well, maybe my timing's wrong here, but you start getting these things where it's like, have we moved on from superheroes? I mean, here's the thing. Kingdom Come is like 5 years before 9/11. But some of the stuff from Kingdom Come, I think, does permeate. A story that I'm thinking of is Superman 775 or Action 775. I can't remember which one it is. The one with the Elite, with Manchester Black in that, where the whole point is that they're like, we've moved on from you, Superman. Like, people want to see, like, justice done. Like, these people were bad, so, you know. And then Superman's like, his ultimate thing is like, fine, is that if that's what you want, I'll show that to you. And then he starts like being like that, and people in Metropolis are like, fuck, and the elite are like, fuck. And of course it's just a ruse, but he's like, we can't sink to that, you know. Like, I do think you get a sort of we do start reveling a little bit in some of those things. And it's not just immediate post 9/11. Even like something like Cry for Justice, a very, I would say, problematic story. You know, Green Arrow just like executing Prometheus. I mean, Prometheus also doing terrorism and stuff like that, destroying Star City and things like that. But I do think we examined that a lot more. That idea of like, the hero's gone too far. They've had enough. Shouldn't we do? Bleh. And again, it's not exclusive to that. It's not like we weren't touching on those things before. You know, like Jean-Paul Vallée as Batman is a great example during Nightfall. That's in the 90s. You know, that's a Batman that goes too far. We don't like that. These are not new ideas, but I do think the idea of that, and the other thing is I think we finally we break the idea of especially for the Justice League, who were traditionally the Justice League of America.
Yeah.
We break the nation idea of them. I think the big post 9/11 thing is like, is it good to be America?
Sure.
And I think that's maybe the biggest advent is, they still call themselves the JLA for a bit, but, you know, Superman eventually renounces his citizenship. But like, and it's also like, do they answer to America, or are they just from there? You know, like, we start doing that. We start to deconstruct that a lot. That's part of it for sure.
Yeah.
I think the question of interventionism becomes a bigger thing in comics. Should Superman fly to that country and do whatever? Should we just solve blah blah blah, or just fly down with our might? You know, look at all the Black Adam stuff. That's such post 9/11 work. You know, JSA, Black Rain, like all the stuff with him taking over in Kahndaq, World War III, about, you know, sovereign borders and you stay there, and who's the bad guy and who's supplanted what government. And,
totally.
Like, that shit is such post 9/11 kind of comics, you know? So I there's quite a bit of it in there. And again, they're not ideas exclusive to the post 9/11 world, but like, you could see it.
There's reflections in that.
100%.
All right, next question from Mars D95, who asks, Morrison's X-Men had the nuclear genocide of Genosha issue come out in August of 2001.
Jesus.
Did DC have any of their own unfortunately timed big city destroying events? Metropolis getting destroyed, but
not then, though.
Yeah.
No.
Metropolis got destroyed in what's it called?
Oh, the Adventures of Superman one?
Yeah, 596, which was like the day after.
Yeah. I was actually going to say it's not as close of timing, but it's close enough to be concerning. Is that even before 9/11 happened, we were in this weird thing, you know, like you probably remember the 2000 election.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everyone was like, did Gore win? They were like,
yeah.
Felt like he sort of gave up in that recount, and then like Bush won, and it was, you know, like there was a real kind of about it, you know. And that's 2000 or early 2001 is when Lex runs for president.
Oh, wow.
So I think we're already riffing on like, what if a bad guy is the president sort of idea a little bit. It's not really the same idea as what the question's proposing.
What about the Our World's at War?
That's around that time, but I don't know exactly how that lines up. But I mean, like that's a big world kind of thing. But I don't know that it also like it's not the same as like, for example, like
they destroyed Kansas, I think, or like Obsidian, Kansas.
But like the destruction of Coast City is like
sure, yeah.
Wipe out. So like there's also I'm sure there's something because there's always damage and stuff in comics, but I think it's like the scale kind of piece. But Our Worlds at War must be around then, roughly.
Or that the White Martian thing around then.
HyperClan's around then, yeah, because that's the Morrison reforming the original 7 as the Justice League again. It's around
like Terror, whatever.
Late 90s, early 2000s is basically.
It's even called like Terror or something.
Well, the HyperClan,
GLA, like Terror or something.
I can't remember, but the HyperClan is before that because that book starts in like 98 or 99 or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, all of those things are running around that time. I'm sure if you wanted to make connections, you could, but like you said, like DC wasn't really like pulling stuff or changing things. No. They were kind of, and maybe again because most of their places are fictional, maybe they didn't
feel like it was
like it's not as in poor taste as
New York in Marvel. Yeah.
Exactly, something like that. But it was definitely different. Yeah. On the impact of 9/11, though, I also just thought of this. Like maybe two of the most mainstreamy. Well, mainstream's maybe the wrong word. Two major voices in DC Comics have direct 9/11 origin stories.
Okay.
One of them is Tom King, who goes into like espionage and counter-espionage, and that permeates so much of his work. The ideas of like lies and truth, distrust of government, espionage, identity, guilt, all these kind of things like Human Target, Wonder Woman, Strange Adventures, like Mr. Miracle, War and Family, like all of these things that are central to Tom King come from that. 9/11 leads to him joining the CIA, leads to his entire oeuvre.
Yeah.
The other one is Gerard Way.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's the reason why he started his fucking...
Witnesses 9/11 and then...
Starts My Chemical Romance.
Welcome to the Black Parade is essentially a concept album about the idea of death and dying and all these things that he sort of was obsessed with because of that. And that permeates like his work in Umbrella Academy and all this stuff. Then of course Doom Patrol and like it's really baked in there.
Yeah.
Two major, I would say, voices in comics in their own way.
Yeah.
Directly influenced and like origined by 9/11.
Totally. Last question.
Sure.
From the Moral Compass of the Doc Squad.
Okay.
Who asks, which characters would have unquestioningly supported the American invasion of Afghanistan and subsequently Iraq?
Major Force.
I mean, sure. Wildcat, Hawkman, and maybe Green Arrow.
That's the thing in that JSA. Is it JSA Black Rain?
Batman,
or whatever?
He's all about fucking revenge.
During that Black Adam thing, Hawkman is like, Sovereign Borders, who gives a shit? We got to go in and stop.
Yeah.
That is Hawkman, absolutely. That Hawkman, very interventionist, Batman is, I think people assume Batman is like, let's go for it. But Batman at least understands the optics. Sure. If anything, Batman is the one that stops or like says to like Clark, "We can't do that, but I have a sneaky way." You know what I mean? Like Batman is always about the sneaky way, not about you don't fly a giant red cape down into a foreign country and say this is how you're going to do it.
You wear a weird brown trench coat and goggles.
There's a Jesus. There's a story not in that immediate era, but actually in the Rebirth era, so like 2015 or whatever, it's in Justice League of America, the Steve Orlando, Ivan Rice run
Sure.
of it. And in that one, the Lord Havoc and the Extremists take over a sort of like Eastern European country. And the Justice League of America goes there to fight, but they go like, we can't go and win this war for you. And so they basically just go and like sign themselves up as volunteers.
Oh,
with
sure.
like there's still this idea of like the optics and like, you have to win your country back. We'll help, but you have to do like that idea is in there. And Batman, I think, gets it.
Yeah.
Who would unquestioningly support the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan? Yeah, I mean, your military characters. I think even Captain Atom. The questions would come later.
Lex, yeah.
Peacemaker. Obvious. Yeah. You know, especially the kind of modern Psycho version of Peacemaker. Lex, I think, is probably too smart to fall for any of it, but would also just see the opportunity in it. Wouldn't necessarily actually support it, but would just, you know, as he does, take advantage. I'm trying to think of other heroes who would support it, because villains is maybe a little like. I actually think someone like
Green Arrow.
Oh, he would be anti. He's an old lefty.
Oh, that's right.
You don't he march against war. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
No, not Green Arrow.
Wildcat.
I think the question would definitely be like, well, 9/11 was an inside job, and he would he'd be working that angle. I mean, our version of Wildcat, where we just assume he's like awful and whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Tom Grummett.
Possibly.
Maybe.
We may never know. So we'll just throw out spurious accusations.
Until we get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, until he bites.
Yeah, until he finally does it. You know what? I mean, you know what's really funny is that like my version of Tom Grummett is really just Mr. Banjo.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Is he going to do it?
I do love our Mr. Banjo. I mean, obviously a character like Major Force or Peacemaker, but I'm going to like full military psychos there.
Sure, yeah.
I think you can make the argument for Sergeant Rock.
Yeah.
You know, a military character who he's not pro senseless death, but he is from an older era.
Gentleman Ghost.
Gentleman.
Well, I think we should be getting the oil from them countries.
I think fucking Darkseid would love it.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Darkseid is going to war.
Yeah. I will release the oil equation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Infrastructure minus people.
Joke for us.
All right. Well, that was the last question in an explosive episode.
No. Jesus.
We would love to hear from you residents. You can send in questions or talk to us online.
Yeah, you'll see the theme when it comes out. But yeah, send your questions. We're Dr. DC Podcast wherever you see it.
Yep. I think where another place seeing it place is our Patreon.
That's right. Patreon.com/DrDC. There's a $1, $5, $7 level. They all give you access to the Docscord, our amazing Discord fan community. The higher levels, you get bonus episodes. It's challenge month on the Docscord.
Oh yeah.
And
speaking of crimes.
Yep.
I'm committing crimes.
Good Lord.
I've committed 2 so far.
Speaking of, Jesus.
I'm sorry, do you not consider those crimes?
I just hope you're not doing it at that scale.
No, I'm doing a 7-Eleven. I just am stealing stuff.
A 7. Oh, no.
I
did see a tweet where someone was like, my grade shame as a kid was confusing 7-Eleven and 9/11 for a school project. Which I love. But yeah, check out Challenge Month. We've set monthly challenges for each other. We're going to be doing some weekly challenges as well. That's going to be a lot of fun.
And by the end of the episode, you're going to be a better person. And, you know.
I mean, how do you improve on perfection?
That's a thing you could talk about.
I mean, it's probably the thing the therapist will say to me. So,
why you're here? Why would you improve on perfection?
Yeah. You're perfect, just the way that we kiss.
Just the way you are.
And yeah. Oh, also we have another podcast, Ghostfacers, a Supernatural rewatch. We're going through every single episode of the CW Supernatural. We talk about real world monster lore, behind the scenes stuff about the show. We're in season 10 right now. We're coming up on episode 200 of Supernatural.
Holy shit.
All sorts of crazy fun stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, this was a bad and uncomfortable and confusing episode for me. I don't know why I did this.
I mean, you should have known better. By this far in.
Let's just say this is a lesson I will never forget.
Ciao, ciao.
Adios.
All the superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure.